Everyone knows his name, but very few know his story. Born in a small town in Switzerland, Louis-Joseph Chevrolet was the son of a watchmaker. Despite his humble beginnings, Chevrolet had ambitions for something greater than watchmaking. He left Switzerland with a passion for racing and a dream of developing his own automobiles. No one could have predicted that one day Chevrolet would go on to become the namesake and co-founder of one of the most famous car manufacturers of all time. Despite his immense talent, life was not easy for Louis Chevrolet, and his story is one of immense tragedy. The prodigal racer and designer may have a household name, but his story is one of betrayal, death, and the loss of a true prodigy. Louis Chevrolet was born on Christmas Day, 1878, in the quaint town of La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland. The town is known for its picturesque mountains and its flourishing watchmaking industry. Chevrolet's father, Joseph Félicien Chevrolet, was a watchmaker himself. As a child, Chevrolet never had an interest in school or studying, which worried the boy's parents. Instead, he became fascinated by his father's workshop and wanted to understand how the watches were made. Unfortunately for the Chevrolet family, life as a watchmaker is not very profitable, and with their family being as big as it was, they needed to seek work outside of Switzerland. His father decided to move the family to France, where he started a new watch shop. Despite his father's hard work, the family business struggled to succeed. At 11 years old, Chevrolet was expected to work and help provide for his family. Chevrolet had a passion for racing and mechanics, so he decided to work at a bicycle repair shop. He was excited to have found a job that helped cultivate his love for gears, spokes, and steam engines. It was at this job that he learned his mechanical skills that would help his career later on. While working here, he found a new passion for racing. He began entering bicycle races, and he quickly became known as a successful bicycle racer. Chevrolet loved the competitions and the adrenaline it gave him. He was improving quickly, and he won his first race soon after 1895. After his first win, he got all of his siblings interested in racing. They realized quickly that not only was racing fun, but they could also use their combined prize winnings to pay for the needs of their family. Chevrolet's life took an unexpected turn one day when he was sent to a nearby hotel to help a guest sort out a mechanical issue. The guest in question was an American who had brought with him a steam-propelled tricycle in need of repairs. Chevrolet quickly got to work, and it turned out that the guest in question was actually the American millionaire Vanderbilt. He expressed how impressed he was with the boy's talents, and from that day forward, Chevrolet knew he needed to take his talent to the United States. Vanderbilt also happened to be a sponsor of the New York car races that were happening during this time, which was a further motivator for Chevrolet to get to America. In the years to follow, Chevrolet would find work in Paris workshops that made engines. He took any job he could in order to make as much money as possible and learn as much as he could. He saved up all his money and eventually was able to buy himself a one-way ticket across the Atlantic. Once Chevrolet was in America, he began working at different dealerships, including Fiat and De Dion Bouton. Finding work was tough, and he had to become a driver to wealthy families to earn some extra money. During his time working at several different dealerships, he realized that one of the main ways that the car companies advertised was through racing, something that he had plenty of experience doing. He began a career as a driver and became successful right away. Being a race car driver during this time was incredibly strenuous activity and required peak physical health. Chevrolet was in amazing shape, and his passion and knowledge for the vehicles he was driving made him stand out immediately. He won many competitions and even set a world record, earning himself the nickname, the Daredevil Frenchman. The public loved him, and his passion for driving was contagious. He soon got his brothers, Arthur and Gaston, into car racing. Together, the three of them created the Chevrolet family team. They were very successful, but racing was also incredibly dangerous. Chevrolet spent a lot of time in hospitals recovering from injuries and came close to death on more than one occurrence. During this time period, Chevrolet was approached by a man named William Durant. Durant was the founder of General Motors and the owner of Buick. Durant knew that Chevrolet had become a crowd favorite and had established a name for himself, and he saw this as an opportunity to use his fame to sell cars. Durant expressed to Chevrolet how impressed he was of his racing career as well as his designs, and together they created the Chevrolet Motor Car Company in 1911. To Chevrolet, this was a dream come true, and only a year after its opening, they had cars in production. The signature logo was picked by Durant. It was actually a scrap of wallpaper he had kept from a hotel in Paris he had once stayed in. Durant said, "This should be the emblem of the car. It will help him move to infinity." This choice proved to be a good one, because today, the Chevrolet emblem is instantly recognizable. At the time of this deal, everything was going great for Chevrolet. With a partner like Durant, he was able to have cars on the market for the first time. The automobile industry was more popular and competitive than ever, especially with companies like Ford to compete with. Chevrolet's dream was to create luxury vehicles of the highest possible quality. He had visions and plans for unique designs that were unlike anything else currently on the car market. Durant, on the other hand, was more concerned about making money and recouping his own personal losses. He believed that if they wanted to be competitive in the industry, they would have to become more affordable than Ford. The two men were in constant disagreement about this, but when it came to designing the first car, Chevrolet won. The first model was their Classic 6. This car was incredibly powerful. It had a 50 horsepower engine and could go very fast for a passenger vehicle. The car was also very expensive to make. It featured a convertible top, electric headlights, and a spacious 5-seat cabin. The car was the epitome of luxury for the time, but it also was incredibly costly to make. Each car cost customers a whopping $2,150. This high number, when compared to the $600 a Ford Model T cost, was staggering for everyday customers. The car was not able to compete in the market, and Durant was furious. His mission to become rich was failing, and he had to suffer yet another devastating financial blow. Durant knew that in order to remain competitive, he would need to make his cars as affordable as possible. Durant knew that if he wanted to make money, he would have to make changes. So while Chevrolet was on vacation, he made edits to the production line. When Chevrolet returned, he was furious to see that his designs had been altered. The two men got into a huge disagreement. They both felt let down and betrayed by the other. The fight between the two became personal quickly when Durant started ridiculing Chevrolet for smoking cigarettes instead of cigars, which was him insinuating that Chevrolet was not as classy and distinguished as the other men of the company. Chevrolet was deeply offended by this and is quoted saying, "I sold you my cars, I sold you my name, but I will not sell you my personality." After this, the investors left the company, and soon after, Chevrolet did as well. After Chevrolet left the company, Durant did exactly what he intended to do. He kept the Chevrolet name and produced cheap and fast cars. Before long, the company was extremely successful, giving Durant the riches and status he dreamed of. After leaving his own company, Chevrolet made some attempts to create new ones, but all failed. While he had the knowledge and the passion, he lacked the funding and the business ideas. Chevrolet made a return to racing, but his body was starting to feel the effects of racing more and more. Unfortunately, Chevrolet's younger brother Gaston tragically died in a racing accident. This was a shock and a horror for Chevrolet and his whole family. Chevrolet was overcome by grief, and the death of his brother ended his career as a driver. He felt that he was out of options, and with great reluctance, he left the auto industry for good. He tried to use his skills in machinery to develop aircraft engines, but this once again ended up costing him greatly. Chevrolet had lost all hope and turned back to his very first profession, watchmaking. The man who was the name and co-creator of one of the world's most famous car manufacturers was back doing the job his father had done so many years ago. In an even more twisted turn of fate, he was eventually offered a job by General Motors as a minimum wage mechanic. For Chevrolet, this marked the end of his dreams. His body soon became ravaged by the effects of atherosclerosis, also known as the disease of the racers. The lower half of his body was affected particularly badly, and doctors soon ordered him to stop driving cars, his only remaining passion. Soon after this news, he retired in Florida with his wife. The humid climate only worsened his disease, and it wasn't long before his legs had to be amputated. Chevrolet never recovered, mentally or physically, from the operation, and on June 6, 1941, Louis Chevrolet died at the age of 63. Today, Chevrolet is a massive automotive brand that sells cars all across the world. Some of their most popular models include the Camaro and the Silverado pickup truck. In 2016, they produced the Chevrolet Bolt EV, which was the first fully electric vehicle that was affordable for a mass audience. The Chevrolet company has continued to innovate and remain an affordable option for consumers. It is still owned by General Motors, which is valued at over $52 billion. In his life, Chevrolet was shown no mercy. He was a prolific dreamer and a champion racer who was used for his namesake and his reputation. It is tragic to know that this man with such a bright future ended up having his dreams fail, but his name lives on as a reminder of the true genius he was. Today, Chevrolet's name is engraved on a memorial bust outside of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum of Fame, as well as being engraved on the millions of Chevrolet vehicles that drive on our roads today.